conjecture?
Well, as much as I love the proofs of the past, actually, the thing which gets me up in the morning to do my mathematics are all the proofs I haven't discovered, all the challenges that we want to try and prove are true. And those are really our conjectures. They're things we think are true about mathematics, but we haven't yet constructed the proofs. So they're kind of the lifeblood of mathematics. Things like the Riemann hypothesis about prime numbers or the Goldbach conjecture. So, and in order to make progress and come up with new proofs, very often what we have to do is to create new mathematical ideas. So, for example, one of the great breakthroughs in mathematics was the idea of imaginary numbers, the square root of -1. It seemed like there wasn't a number which, when you square it, equals -1. But there was this wonderful creative moment in mathematics where people said, well, what if there was? That would be really exciting. So this idea of suddenly going outside the system that you've created up to that point, putting something new in is often the ingredient you need for making the breakthrough in improving these great conjectures.
Yeah, and so I suppose for me this was the freest of the movements. I mean, it really was. Conjecture conjures up something really new, and it was. I suppose I mean I'd landed at the Schubert from Movement 4, and I'd landed at Schubert's Death and the Maiden String Quartet. It's the theme from the second movement, and I took the melodic line of that as the starting place for this conjecture. And I suppose it's like I'm fascinated in what happens if I just let something go and apply some new rules perhaps outside Schubert's language, definitely outside Schubert's language, but what happens if I just let this go, and where does it end up? And that's exactly what I did with this. As I said, it's kind of one of the first times where I've set a few rules going. Like, so for example, the Schubert, it goes from you hear it alternately between the lower instruments and the higher instruments. So you've got the two violins, you've got the viola and the cello, and you hear this melody line between them. You hear it absolutely bare. There's no harmonic element, and you hear these. You hear it loud, and it becomes quiet, and then it goes back to loud, and it's over. Very systematically, and you also hear at a different sort of rhythm. You hear the vibrato going from, so the vibrato is like no vibrato, so no kind of this kind of sound that they make, and to an extreme, or via a very romantic kind of vibrato into this absolutely extreme one, and again back again. And this happens sort of periodically and systematically throughout, whilst you hear the whole the whole tonal structure of it kind of expand upwards and downwards and kind of collapse into quarter tones. So these are pitches between like the semitones. So it's as though it's discovering new areas, and then into the sort of ether beyond, like really quiet and sort of. And I suppose for me, it reaches a completely different sound world, quite systematically in a way.
Yeah, well, I think what I thought was kind of exciting is, that idea of adding the square root of -1 into mathematics opened up new possibilities. When I hear that really wide vib, which is not something you hear very often, in music, certainly up to the 20th century, is what is the implications of that? And then it almost as if, well, that forces you to discover the quarter tones, and the quarter tones give you a completely different sound world. And I think that idea that you articulated of I'm going to start somewhere and just explore where this might take me is really consistent with how I do my mathematics. I don't know where I'm going very often in the morning when I set off on a kind of mathematical journey through the mathematical landscape, and you try different things, and some things don't work, and then you hope. That's what's interesting. Sometimes where you're trying to get, and you're trying to find the path there, but sometimes the conjecture emerges out of that exploration, and so I think this kind of mimicked very well the kind of feeling I have when I'm going into the unknown. This was musically going into the unknown.
Absolutely.